First of all, just a quick thank you to everyone who followed me during January and interacted, engaged with all my videos. I hope they provided the value I hope they provided the value that I intended them to. I hope there's something that you can kind of continuously either refer back to or that you took nuggets from it. But thank you in any case. Um, what I wanted to talk to you about today is, and I don't know if I'm the only person who um feels like this, but I think for a large part, a lot of the times we're still talking about the mistakes and the mistakes that organizations are making. And when I say mistakes that organizations are making, clearly I wrote a book all about how organizations can do it better. But I feel like the approach at the moment is focused more on the mistakes rather than the solutions. And in many cases, I think that I made a video about perfectionism paralysis a couple of years ago, but aside from perfectionism paralysis, I think a lot of organizations are still struggling with this part around how do I take the first step? Because the backdrop to all of that is everyone's like, well, why haven't you taken a first step when you kind of proclaimed that you're going to do all of these things? And then we've tried stuff and it hasn't worked. And what I want to say is, how do we start? How do we take that first step? So you'll see just right here, I developed a 4-step methodology called D.A.R.E, Diagnose, Assess, Recalibrate, and Embed. But today I just really want to focus on the diagnosis part. And the reason why I really want to drill down into the diagnosis part is this is the part that organizations skip. And when I say skip, I mean as in the diagnosis is usually done from on high and they move to, okay, this is where we are, this is what we do next, as opposed to taking a step back and saying, what is the real problem? Because there are two problems. There's the perceived problem. There's the perceived problem, I would say, from leadership. There's the problem for the employees, for the women in the organizations who are facing the actual challenges. And then there's the spectrum all in between, the viewpoints of managers, how they see things, the viewpoints of HR and how they see things. And it's actually this diagnosis phase that takes the most time. That's the part that needs the most investment. And when I say the most investment, it's dependent on business size, but that can take you from anywhere from 3 months to 12 months. But that's the part where you have to be very strategic as to not just these are the outputs that I want and this is the information I'm looking for to take the next step. It's also how can I get different inputs, different angles, almost without priming the person to give me the answer that I want to get to the next part. And I think this is the recurring loop that we are seeing with organizations kind of still feeling like they're not moving because they're not heavily investing enough time in this diagnosis phase. Or if they do, they're over investing time in the diagnosis phase. And what do I mean by that? They do the work. They get an answer that they don't like because it challenges loads of existing people, it challenges loads of existing structures within their business. So they go, nope, that's not the answer I wanted. I'm going to go back again. I'm going to do another employee engagement survey. I'm going to do another forum. I'm going to do another, all to avoid taking that meaningful next step. So to summarize it all, there's 2 parts in this diagnosis phase. One is, well, no, I'd say 3. Be very strategic at the time frame you want to invest in this, but it's not a short term investment. This needs to have real time so that you can make meaningful steps. Number 2 is, what am I realistically prepared to do if I get feedback that I don't like? Is your organization ready and prepared to take the necessary steps? And number 3, don't use this as a phase to avoid taking action. Now, as it pertains very specifically to Black women, you can read my book, Closing the Gap, as to how to kind of work with the methodology. And I'll speak more about the reason framework later. But this diagnosis phase is really the part that helps you to determine your organization's success at achieving gender equity in general, but even more so when you look at it for what you're trying to achieve with Black women.